Thank you. We've enjoyed having all of you all throughout this series. We have been building on each thought as we go along. So we've been talking about preparing for end of life. We have been talking about living with more intention. And so we talked first about how we leave our legacy behind. What are our values? And how we die is just as important as how we live. And part of that is maybe an emotional experience. And so we talked about befriending our emotions because sometimes that can evoke some kind of emotional response when we think about, hey, I'm going to die one day. And there are some things that I still want to do. There are some things that I'm not prepared for. So that's very normal to have those emotions. And we wanted to give you something for your toolkit that you can help work through those. And then last time we met, we talked about empowering your choices, why it's important to know that you have a voice and you have a choice when it comes to your healthcare options, and why it's important to let somebody know what your choices are. And then tonight, we're going to wrap this whole thing up by letting you know that in order to make sure your voice is heard, you have to put them down on paper and you have to get great documents in place so that your voice can be known. And then also the importance of naming somebody who will be your voice when you don't physically have one anymore, which is just as important as putting those thoughts on paper. You must pick somebody who's going to echo your voice as well. So with that, we will get started. So before we do that, let's recap from last time, which was 2 weeks ago, when we talked about empowering our choices. So wanted to see if you did your homework that we asked of you to kind of journal and jot about. So what did you discover about yourself when we asked you to think about what gives you peace and comfort? What is it that is important to you that helps you feel that peace? And how did it feel to reflect on that? Was it difficult to identify those things that bring you the most comfort, or was it easy? Did you take an action towards finding those items of peace and comfort? And how did that feel to accomplish that? So, in other words, if you have, excuse me, a special picture or special quilt that somebody made for you, or maybe it's even a special playlist of some favorite songs. You know, when we get to our end of life and we're making that transition, we want to be able to bring beauty to the bedside no matter where we are. So if we're at home in our beds and we have things that are comfortable all around us that bring us joy and peace, um, maybe those items are easy to find when we're at home. But what if we are finding ourselves in a hospital or somewhere that's not in our home? How can we empower someone to go find those items for us and bring them to us wherever we are so that we can have beauty at the bedside, no matter where we're at, no matter where we are, we can have peace and comfort with those things that we love and that bring us joy. So that's why we do that exercise. And then we showed you this video called The Life of Death, and just a little screenshot here of that video to jog your memory. But we asked you, what does it feel like? What did it feel like to know that death is our companion? It's weaving in and out of our lives. It's our constant companion. And is it something to fear? Or is it something that we can call friend, maybe? Because when we have death as that constant companion, it can help us realize that we're living in our more time right now and that we can live with intention today. We can do those things that we love and desire today and not put off till tomorrow because we want to live with intention today. Today is our more time. If you were told You had you were going to die today, but you didn't. You've got more time. You've got more time to do those things that you love and that you wish for. Well, that's your more time today. We've all got that today. So death is our friend. It's weaving in and out in a graceful manner, and it's helping us live with more intention. Remember them? Remember those little characters from The Life of Death? I don't know. I think Death was kind of cute in that video. All right. So the other thing that we talked about was, do you feel it is possible to live a more intentional life after learning that death is around us, in which we just talked about that? So how does knowing what we learned last week help us to live a more intentional life? And how does that feel now that you've had a couple of weeks to sit with that? That might be something that's new to you. It certainly was new to me when I first started this work. Um, when I first started doula class, I guess, I did it because I wanted to make sure that my patients, where I worked at the skilled nursing center, knew their options and knew that they had a voice, and that me being their social worker, it was my duty to echo their voice and to provide their family with options and to know that it's okay sometimes to not choose curative medicine or to choose certain treatments. It's okay to choose to not do anything. And so through that work, I learned new things. And one of those things that I learned was thinking about death can help me live with more intention. So that was a new concept to me as well. I love this quote here. So we don't have control over when our end of life comes, do we? And that's a scary thing sometimes, or it can be, unless we're prepared. So the only control you have is over the changes you choose to make. And that's why all y'all are here tonight, is because you are choosing to take some control over what you can control. And that is your choices. And that is your voices. And so we're going to help you to make that jump from thought to practically putting this into place. So no one grows up thinking that they're going to get old. I don't know if you all remember your childhood, your teens, even your 20s. It just seemed like death was so far away then. And unless you're living in my house, and my boys who are ages 23, 21, and 8, well, they get to hear about death all the time. And my 20-year-olds have a power of attorney in place thanks to me. So sometimes they don't have a choice but to think about it. But it's not something that was on the forefront of my mind when I was in my younger years. So, we're thinking about other things when we're young. We're thinking about soccer, we're thinking about tennis, we're thinking about having kids and who we're going to get married to and those kinds of things. But then we get a little bit older and we see those gray hairs cover mine up, and we see those laugh lines forming, and things kind of hurt when you get out of bed. And you know what? I had a colonoscopy today, and that's probably TMI, but that's part of getting older, isn't it? So, there's things that remind us every day that we're getting older. And so I don't want to have a single day pass me by without making choices and taking empowerment over my life. So that's why we don't want to miss those chances to pull our life and legacy together, share with those we love, take that stress off of our family, and provide them with a gift. And that gift is what you're going to be preparing at the end of this class. So why do we do this? Why do we share our preferences? Well, most people don't die in their sleep in their own homes with everybody knowing what you want. And that's the gift, is knowing what you want. So Referencing again the skilled nursing center, a lot of times we do have people there for rehab quite a bit, but we also have people who live there. Sometimes they come to us maybe in later stages of dementia. Most of the time, that is the case. And they haven't had that moment with their family where they have talked about decisions, talked about what they want. And so the family is left to guess and just kind of do the best they can, which is fine. We've talked about doing the best that we can is fine. And but what if we can do better? What if we can have those conversations before we're diagnosed with something like dementia and we're not able to share our preferences? So when my families come to the skilled nursing facility and their loved one can't speak for themselves and they can't ask questions as to what their preferences are, we're left to just doing our best. And that might be taking them to cancer treatments or who knows what, sending them out for a feeding tube, let's say. And that person might have thought to themselves, I don't want to live that way, but they never got the chance to share. And I've seen that so many times. And that's why I'm passionate about telling this to you and sharing this to you so that that will not be what happens to you. So I just want to share with you these statistics. So 90% of Americans have heard about advance directives. 71% have actually thought about their own end-of-life wishes. 29% actually have advance directives. So all of us have thought, well, most of us, 90% of people have heard about advance directives and have thought about what our vision would be for our last moments, but we haven't taken that step to plan ahead. Even though planning ahead cannot guarantee that our vision will happen, but again, as we mentioned, it can help you have beauty at the bedside, wherever that bed is. And sometimes it can create a sense of peace just knowing that you do have a plan in place, even if sometimes that plan does kind of go off the rails. Again, we're doing the best we can, but that plan itself brings peace. And this is kind of where I like to sometimes interject that I had my son 8 years ago, and I had a really great birth plan in place that was 2 pages long. But he came around so fast that we did not have a chance to even get out of the triage room. And so that plan went out the window. I had a cute little hospital gown that I was going to put on. I had some essential oils I had brought with me, a playlist. I was ready for this moment, but I couldn't use any of it. But you know what? The plan, knowing that I had a plan and I had the things with me, it brought me peace. And then I was able to use those things later. But just knowing that the plan was there was enough for my mind to say everything is okay. So Ira Byock is a doctor that I quote quite a bit. He's been on a lot of documentaries that I've watched, including a 60 Minutes one. I believe it's called The Cost of Death, that you might want to look up. But he says at present, just over 1/5 of Americans are at home when they die. Over 30% die in nursing homes, where according to polls, virtually no one says they want to be. Hospitals remain the site of over 50% of deaths in most parts of the country. Nearly 40% of people who die in hospitals spend their last days in ICU, where they're likely to be sedated, be tied down, so they won't pull out those breathing tubes, those feeding tubes, or whatever else is attached to them. And he says, dying is hard, but it doesn't have to be this hard. And there's a lot of numbers in there. But basically what that means is that when we have a vision of our last moments, they may be of us laying in our bed at home, but most of us are not at home when we die. Only 1/5 of Americans are. The rest of us are in nursing homes or hospitals. So in order to help avoid that, if that's your wish now, some people that is their wish. They do want to die in a hospital or they do want to die in a skilled nursing center, and that is okay. If that is part of your plan, we want to make sure that you let that plan be known. And sometimes that helps you to be more comfortable. I've got a client right now who made that choice and said, I know I'm coming on the end of my life and I want to die in skilled nursing because I just feel more comfortable having nurses there 24/7, having access to pain medication whenever I need it, and for my family to just be my family and not be my care partners. And that is okay too. So my point here is that whatever your vision is, we want to make sure that we can make that happen for you. And that is what these documents and what this paperwork is all about. So I'm going to just pause it right here and see, does anybody have a comment or a question or want to share what's coming up for you when we talk about that? Anyone?
Hi, you guys. This is Christina. I'm on the phone, so sorry it took me a second to unmute. I just wanted to ask if you would mind repeating those numbers of the people that say they don't want to die in a nursing home, but the percentage that actually wind up doing so. And I apologize if you're planning to share slides after all this. That's fine too.
Oh, no, you're fine. So I have a couple of quotes actually, and one of them, so to put it in another way, so Stanford University did a study, and this was probably, let's see, I want to say this one was 10 years ago. And they said something similar. They found that 80% of Americans prefer to die at home. This one's said a little more simpler. So 80% prefer to die at home. Despite this, 60% of Americans die in hospitals, 20% in nursing homes, 20% at home. And I believe the slide said 1/5 of Americans die at home and the rest are in acute care settings. And then in that Stanford study, they go on to say that a minority of dying patients use hospice care. And even those patients are often referred to hospice at only the last 3 to 4 weeks of life. So we're not receiving a lot of support when it comes to end-of-life care either. So does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And Teresa has posted
Except
yeah.
I sent it to you, so I'm gonna make that, I'm gonna do better.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that question. All right. So knowing what we know now, we have learned that it's very important to share what our wishes are. And so I'm going to let Terry tell us about paperwork documents. What type of documents are out there, and why it's important for us to choose someone who's going to echo our voice. Terry, do you want to pick up?
Thank you, Ashley. I worked for an attorney before I decided to become a nurse. So this is where I really like to get in and talk about things. And Ashley may share the screen back up, but there are documents that we want to be able to know we have in place. And it used to be years ago that when I worked for attorneys, we told everybody if they had their powers of attorney and will, they were set and ready to go. There was no problem. So I want to go over these because as we've educated ourselves, as the systems have changed, we need to look at it a little bit differently. The first one we want to talk about tonight is our power of attorney for healthcare. There's also a power of attorney for finance. Usually they're separate. Every now and then you will find an attorney that does a general power of attorney that just gives the powers to one person for everything you've got. So I want you to remember that it's really important to think about who you are appointing And in these particular legal documents, it only gives them the power to make those decisions for you. It doesn't tell them what you want. So it's kind of a broad, open credit card, so to speak, and they have your pocketbook or your health, and they can make whatever decision they want. So when we're looking at finding somebody, we want to be assured that that is the right person, okay? We now have living wills, advanced care plans. This outlines your wishes so that decisions are yours and not somebody else's. It's important for us to write down what we want. And there's more than just one form that you can use. If you've done your living will, that's great. But if you want to go deeper, we've got something else we're going to talk about that will help you even further. Then we have our last will and testament. It says, what do we want to happen when we die? How do we want our stuff taken care of? And that's important. We also have what's called a post or a post in some areas. This is a physician's order, and he makes this document by your wishes. And it's basically for a seen at a glance, do you want CPR or do you not? And that's great, but there's also more decisions or more things to think about. It's not just a yes or no situation. There are many reasons why you might want CPR in one situation, but not in another. And then we also have trust documents. The trust is established to protect your assets. And a lot of people that are looking at end of life may want everything put in a trust. You may have children, young children, like Ashley has one that's underage. So you want a trust to be able to protect resources for him and things that are going on. So that's kind of the beginning of documents. And I tell everybody, don't just assume that if you've got these all checked off, you've got them all taken care of. Here's what I want you to remember and say to yourself. I have an advance directive, not because I have a serious illness, but because I have a family. And that is the most important thing that we have to remember. It's not, so many people wait until they get the diagnosis of cancer or congestive heart failure, COPD, that they know they're probably not going to work through. And they're starting behind this big 8 ball, this big black ball that's in front of them that often makes it hard for them to make truthful decisions as they go through. So those things are important for us to keep in mind so that we can do ahead of time. For some of you, you not only have children, you may have grandchildren. I saw a lady today that also has great grandchildren that she's watching being raised in and around a family farm. And that's the reason why this lady was in her late 80s and executed her documents today. She waited a little bit later than I think she might have wanted to, but there is no better day than today to start and take care of those documents. I want you to remember at all costs that we are more than just a body or stuff. As you're making decisions, we are a spiritual being. No matter what your beliefs are, we still have that soul. We are legacy builders. If we are planning in advance, we're building our legacy. We're going to set that the way we want it to look and be. And what's important to us is what builds our legacy. If we decide that we want to be a caring, compassionate human being, and that's how we want to be remembered, then we start building a legacy that people are going to look and go, she was the most loving person. I never heard her say a bad word about anybody. We are also community partners. We are in this together. And sometimes in a marriage, when we say till death does us part, it's the same thing as community partners. We're here to support each other. If Miss Margaret doesn't mind me sharing, she talked about the fact that their minister is leaving and the congregation's grieving the loss of a minister that they love, that they've respected. So they have gratitude in one hand that they've had him forever, and now the other hand is opening, and they're going to hold some grief there. But as a church, as a community, they can support each other and be able to make this time of transition easier on everybody. Grief is just not about death. There are many situations in life that put grief to us that we don't even think until later in life. Ashley and I spoke yesterday, and we were talking to a social worker that actually worked at the Children's Hospital in Nashville. And she said every time she hears a helicopter, she gets anxious. And after hearing us talk yesterday, she said, that's my grief. That was my grief because they were bringing children in that might not make it, that we couldn't fix. And so grief comes in all places, in all corners, in all shadows, or right in the light right in front of us on a good day. We can also be passionate dreamers. I want you to look at life and I want you to dream ahead with all of its glory. From this day forward, what do I want? What do I want people to know about me? What do I want them to know about my wishes and desires? And I want you to put your little feet to the ground, and I want you to share that with everybody that's around you. What is important about life as well as death. If you have things you want somebody to know, to have, give it to them now. Remember that it is your right to be heard. It is your right to have dignity and respect. And if you're not getting that, decide from this day forward. I think that's important to all of us. So make that stand through life, and it will continue on through death. It is your right to speak for yourself. And when you can't, to have an advocate that will do just what you want for you. Now, here's one of those stats. 39% of advance directives can't be found when they're needed. And 9 times out of 10, they may be in a lockbox and nobody can get in there. So we want to talk about tonight putting your wishes on paper. We've talked about how you're feeling and your emotions and starting action steps. Now we want to put our feet to the road and we want to start walking. What's next? Here's what I want you to consider. Find a place in your home that you can put your documents. Get a little fireproof safe that will hold your documents. Don't just put it in a file folder in the desk. If the house burns, so go all of your legal documents, okay? If somebody robs your house and goes through it, sometimes so go your legal documents. A tornado can go through, but we hope that that little file cabinet will make it and somebody will find it. Maybe it gets on a tornado relief and you recognize your fire safe. So keep them safe. We want you to start with the simple legacy statement we talked about, I think, in class 1 or 2, I think. And make sure that you have that written down. What is my legacy statement? What do I want? And then we want you to add the list of your favorite things, the things that are important to you. Just keep building. This just needs to become a file that's just full and overflowing with your love, with the things you want people to know about you, the things you want them to have from you. It all goes right there. Then we just keep building and we keep building. Maybe another grandchild or a great grandchild has been born. Maybe you don't have any, but you want to plan for them. You can write a letter to a grandchild that's not even planned right now and say, in case there's a grandchild, this is what I would want to tell them about me. And write that letter and put it up. Maybe you write another one for their graduation or the day they get married, for young children and grandchildren that you have. There's all kind of things. You can just keep working on this and make it in your little cozy cove and a happy place to go so that you are leaving your legacy. Add pictures, yes, from childhood, but write who's in that picture on the back of the picture. I have pictures in my house everywhere, and I don't know who they are, but it says a box of your family. And it's 3 or 4 generations past who I know. Do my kids want those? Probably not. Are they still here? Yes. Will they be here when I die? Probably. They can figure out what they want to do with them. Let's talk about what's next. It is so important for you to identify someone that can help you with paperwork items. Don't just leave it up to you. How much fun is it to live life all by yourself, never talking to a neighbor or a spouse or your daughter on the phone that day? Doesn't it get lonely? Don't you get kind of down? And maybe we just sit on the couch and watch television all day and we don't get up or do anything. So find your support person and tag into them and say, this is important to me. Will you help me? And get that yes from them. We need them. Then I want you to think about, just as important as your paperwork and things are that bring you peace. We want peace from all of this. And it's part of doing the paperwork. It's important. We need it done. But we also need to find peace from it. So I'm going to tell you, if anybody here has or is working with families that don't get along, you can't necessarily set them all at your dining room table and tell them what your plans are and not expect a free-for-all, right? So if we know that, we have those trusted people and we make sure they help us get our documents in order. We try to do what we can to find peace. Maybe we need to write a letter to the child that is not going to be happy because he did not get more of the farm than everybody else, and just let him know you love them all. Because sometimes that note or that video from a parent that explains, I love you and I did this because, is a great and wonderful peace factor for them, but it also gives us peace that we've done everything we can possibly do to tuck all of that away and live life at the very best we can for each and every day. I want you to know it is your right to be heard, to have dignity and respect, to have the peace that you want, and it is your right to speak up for yourself. And those rights start right now. I guess the biggest thing that I think of is when we are going to the doctor's office and our daughter goes with us. And the doctor looks at your daughter and goes, How's mom doing? Turn around, look at that doctor and go, I'm here. I can tell you how I am. You know, make your voice heard. It is so important that we do that, okay? And the places that we need to use those, talk to your family, talk to your friends, know what we need to do and say. It's okay if you talk about this all the time. They're going to look at you every now and then. Are you going to talk about your rights today? But after a while, they're going to laugh and go, you know what? It's your right, Mom. You can do and say whatever you want to about your health care. That's what we want happening. Now, are you ready to talk? Are you ready to make things happen? Anybody have anything to say so far? Miss Margaret's kind of laughed a couple of times. I've watched her. You need to unmute, Miss Margaret, and talk to us.
Well, she's
It's
unmuting.
too
I
much
just
my
want to
real
compliment
world. I
you.
see this going on.
It is too much of your real world, and you can personally see it, can't you, Miss Margaret? But you know what? We all can. And that's, to smile, to laugh about it, and then think about what baby step can I do to help myself is the thing we need to do. And we also had a comment from our phone caller. Come off mute and tell us whatever you were saying again.
Oh, sorry. I just only doing this by audio right now, and I wish I could see your face, but the way that you are describing how to think ahead for your preparation is it's just beautiful. I work with a couple of families right now, independent caregiving, one with dementia, one with Alzheimer's, and walking families through a lot of denial. So the way that you are voicing this, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to steal every bit of it when I talk with them about planning ahead and preparing, because it's just simply beautiful. So thank you.
I would be honored if you use anything that we say tonight. That's why we do what we do, is if we don't reach people and talk to them and help them find the right words, we cannot beat into people what we want them to do, right? We don't do anything we don't want to do until we're prepared to do it. But when we get prepared, we need to know where the resources are and our trusted providers to help us get these type of things put together. And it doesn't take a lot, but if you don't know where to start and you don't know how to make a plan, it's overwhelming, and you just sit back and go, not today, not today.
Well, Terry,
And
I
it just
really
continues.
appreciate what she said too, because like when you just said about we're a community, and so of course we can't be everywhere, but if we can pass on something to somebody and they can pass it on to their community, well, that's exactly what our passion is and what our dream is for communities to be able to support each other in this way. So I think that's a really great illustration of what you were saying earlier, Terry.
Absolutely. And Christy posts the videos for these sessions. So if you need to guide a family to these to sit and watch, we welcome that, because it just helps us spread further than we can possibly reach on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we talked about your comfy cove, a place that you feel good, a place that you have good emotions. And sometimes, even in our comfy cove, we might have some strong emotions that come out. And the place that I want you to consider starting, and we're going to give all of this to Christy so she can send out in an email, and you can find this document and download it. So you can take notes. I love people that take notes, but we're going to send this stuff to you, okay? This is a booklet, and it's actually online. It's a fillable PDF form. I love it because it starts with what matters to me. And it was actually done through the Conversation Project, and we've talked about them in this course before. It puts everything in simple terms, and it makes it easy for you to think about and start. We begin at question 1 in this document. It talks about sensitive healthcare decisions and what you would want done. Those kind of things are important. We begin healthy today or with a chronic illness. Wherever you are today is where you start this document. Then we look at healthcare decisions. If you're healthy, maybe your decisions are kind of easy right now. But each one of these, as you go through these questions, are kind of like baby steps. So think about them. Take the time to look at it. If you're like me, if you write in pen, you may be scratching through it and starting over. Maybe you want a pencil. Maybe you want several copies. But it will guide you through the things that you need to consider to feel like you have gone through a whirlwind, but you know what you want. The most important thing that we want you to consider is naming your healthcare advocate. That's what we talked about in the documents as your power of attorney for healthcare. That document says that person can make healthcare decisions for me. But there are other documents that tell your healthcare advocate what's important to you. And what matters to me, that workbook, is the place that we start. That person absolutely does not have to be a family member. If you do not believe that you have a family member that will respect your wishes and choices, then look outside your family to find somebody to be your healthcare advocate. Ashley and I have a few clients that we are their healthcare advocate because they either feel like their family would disagree, or they wouldn't do what they wanted, or they didn't want to put that burden on them to make those decisions. If you have all your documents in order, in theory, your healthcare advocate really doesn't have any decisions to make. They say, Teresa wants this to happen in this situation. And that's what's done. And that's what we want to happen from the healthcare advocate. So it's very, very important that you name someone you trust and respect, and they are not going to give in to somebody else throwing a little temper tantrum saying we can't let Terry die. Because if Terry said, let me go, if I could have it tattooed across my chest, do not resuscitate, I would, but you know, they don't take that anymore. So I need somebody that will stand up and go, no, 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 that is not what she wants. So those decisions are important. Now I want you to tell somebody, you've gone through your book. So here are the people I want you to think about telling what you need. Your healthcare advocate's going to be listed on a form. They will be your champion. They will stand up for you when you cannot say a word. Now, you need to tell them before they're appointed. You need to discuss your wishes with them so you know they'll do what you want. But once your documents are prepared, you look at them and go, here is my power of attorney. Here's my advanced healthcare directive. We've talked about this. You are my right arm. You are my heart. You are my champion. Hold me tight when I cannot speak for myself. Tell your family where a copy is. They need to know. We just said 39% of them can't be found. So tell them. Tell more than one. I don't care if you tell the preacher. and the ladies at the senior citizen center, I don't care. But whatever gives you peace of mind is who needs to know. If they're going to fuss and try to look at it and you don't want them to, then don't tell them. Tell your healthcare providers. Your doctors need to know. Your home healthcare agency needs to know. If you get to the point that you're on hospice, they're going to ask you if you have these forms done. And you can look at them and go, sister, I'm prepared. I'm ready for you. Here's my documents. Think about it. Even your podiatrist, he's just cutting your toenails. But you don't ever know what's going to happen. Your dentist. My mom passed out in a dentist's office one day, and she had early stages of dementia. And when she filled out the form, she told him she was a widow. Well, my daddy was still living. Thank goodness she listed me as the next of kin. So the dentist called me. And I said, well, I'm going to call my dad and get her to come pick her up. Don't call EMS, because mom was right back. I said, he'll come get her. And the lady that called me said, honey, your daddy's deceased. And I said, what? When did that happen? I said, no. I said, my daddy's very much alive. Probably dropped her off for her appointment. He'll be right there. So even your dentist may need your advance directive. It's okay to share with them. They need to know and understand your wishes. They also need to know if you're married or a widow. Take these steps. It is so important. It is my wish that everyone takes these steps and they feel empowered and they've done their homework. What matters to me is an easy book for you to work through. You can order these online. You really can. And your Sunday school class can work through them together, or your ladies group can work through them together. Once you complete that document, though, there's one more that we need to talk about. And Miss Margaret, I'm sorry, I put in Tennessee Advanced Directive, but since you're in California, there is an advanced healthcare document that is recognized in every state. And California's is a little bit different than Tennessee's. As a matter of fact, when it was originally approved, the California form had to be copied on pink paper so that they knew what that document was. I think it took a few years and they got tired of people not having pink paper to print them on, and I think that has changed, but that was in the rules when it was first approved in California, that it needed to be on pink paper. You can Google any state and put California Advanced Healthcare Directive, and it will send you right to what you need. You can put in North Carolina, anything else. Some of the forms are very standard, but don't just assume. You want to be assured that the state you're in, you've done the document that stands alone. A Tennessee Advanced Directive form can be handed into the hospital and your wishes are there. You don't have to have that power of attorney for health care. It's great if you do, but this form will stand alone in the states that have one that's approved. So we want you to take the action. We want you to take those steps, baby steps if needed. Don't be overwhelmed, but start today. There's no better day than today. You will be empowered. Your loved ones will be empowered. You will have peace of mind. Your loved ones will have peace of mind. And that is what's absolutely important. If you have problems filling out the form, if you get Christy's email and you can't figure it out, you just respond back to her because she's going to get it to you. But these forms can be found, and there's more than just one. We just happen to like this one because it's real thorough, okay? And our last slide basically says, thank you. We appreciate everybody that's been able to come to one or all 4 of these course nights. We appreciate it. We hope that you've learned something and that it's been well worth your time. We appreciate Engaging Communities Tennessee, both Christy and Stephanie. It's been great to work with them. And please always remember, you are not walking this path alone. Ashley, would you like to add anything?
Sure would. So, at Life Journey Advisors, like I said, like Terry said, you're more than just a body. You're also mind and spirit. So if you're interested, if you do have a ladies group or some other type of group, and you want to go more in depth with discovering what your vision is for feeling complete with your life, and that's emotionally, mentally, physically, even down to this paperworky kind of stuff. If you would like to have us do a seminar in your group or church, then we are available for that. And we also do this work one-on-one with clients. So if you would like us to help coach you into what matters most to you, then we are definitely available for that as well. And so when we send our follow-up email, we will send you a link to the Tennessee Advanced Directive, since that just happens to be our home state that we're in right now. Margaret, if you need help finding that, we can do that for you. And we will also send you the link to the Healthcare Decisions book. So you'll get that as well as the recording to this, well, the whole series is being sent out. So this class in particular will come in that follow-up email.